Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Holman, and this week, recording for the week of August 6th, I've got my man, Rob Lawlisher with Road 55. We're going to funnel off some headlines and talk about some things that you need to be paying attention to in your business right now. Morning, Rob.
Good morning, Dan. How are you, sir?
Hey, kid, couldn't be any better today.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We got a lot of, it's middle of summer, but now's the time to really be thinking about numbers. And we got a lot of great topics around just that. This week, we're going to be talking about, Lightspeed's come out with some new features, and I know you're all over that. And historical data when it comes to your leasing, and more importantly, real-time data to negotiate a better lease. I know that's a big topic for a lot of people. This one's interesting. It's about numbers, it's about speed, but actually kind of going a little bit the other way, and that's slow fashion, upcycling and sustainability, especially amongst millennials, and how to use that to your advantage. And as we said, a discussion around inventory, the infamous toilet paper shortage. No one wants to see that again. And Dan will talk a little bit about classifying inventory. So yeah, lots of good stuff on the numbers side. Obviously we want to be focused on the growing your number, and let's get going on the first story. It comes to us from retaildive.com, and it talks about, like I say, just what shoppers want, so much driven by speed. Everyone's thinking speed, but this story actually talks about what retailers can do to really break that demand for high-speed delivery, and it focuses around the quote from the story says, an endless aisle of telling good stories, making a sustainability case for their delivery options, touting the advantage of their limited or their curated assortment, and otherwise fostering really good relationships with customers. Dan, take us away. What do you think on this one?
Well, I mean, this is really going to pick on the big A, and how the big A is maybe now more concerned about the independent. There are a few benefits that have come from this pandemic, and patience is one of those benefits that have come. Our customers have in fact slowed down. We've become less demanding. We are now allowing excuse to slow that process down. Excuse the deflection of blame onto something or someone I have no control or influence over, COVID-19. It's become an excuse for why I've slowed things down. But this is actually a positive for our customer. They want us to curate products. This Amazon endless aisle of shit that's available today isn't what we want. We want a curated. I want something that you've chosen for me. You've swam through the plethora of garbage that's out there and selected the best products for me. And so convenience will always reign supreme. I want things to be easy, convenient. But speed is now taking a back seat to specialty, to curation. And the better you know me as the retailer, the more loyalty you will gain from me. Loyalty is not something we can buy and sell. It is not driven by discounts in my store. It's driven by my connection to you and your connection to me as the consumer.
How do you feel? So a lot of it really comes to the communication of that the timing of it all. Is it a before, during, not after really, but what can the retailers do within that process to help tell that story of that curation?
They have to continue to speak to their work in curating products, in creating a scarcity model. I don't have 25 of them, I have 4 of them. Right. And the examples that we're seeing today, we've started to see launches, product launches with the independent retailer. And there's a great number of really fabulous examples of retailers that are out doing weekly launches of product. And it's a curated assortment. It's available for a minute only. I have only this many. And so now it's no longer this widespread assortment. It's very narrow, and in some cases, not very deep. And so we're truly selling to extinction. And that's what we want our customer to know, that we're selling to extinction. This is not going to be here tomorrow.
I love
And
that
so
too.
that message,
Yeah.
sorry, this idea that if I don't get it tonight at 7 o'clock, I am going to miss out. We're creating FOMO in our independent stores, something that we've not had ever before. Again, a positive benefit coming from the shift in consumer buying habits.
Yeah. You made a great point of the big A with the forever endless shelf, that there's a zillion of these things and it doesn't get it when you want, but that limit to availability and the curation part of it, the FOMO, and from a marketing standpoint, using that limited availability, and you'll get it when you get it. Just be thankful that you got it
You got it.
many,
Right.
many regards, and how powerful that is, and gives retailers, everyone kind of struggles with what's my angle this week or for this coming
Right.
video, and to make your angle the fact that you only have 3 of said widget, and
Right.
you turned it into a huge positive.
And I think that this is the power. I mean, let's go back a decade and a half and talk about the home shopping network. The counter on the window, 4 left, 3 left, 2 left. Oh my God, we've sold out of them.
Honey, give me the
phone. Sorry. Yeah, get the phone, get the phone. What's the number?
Yeah.
And this is what we've done at the independent level. You see, what consumers have recognized now, even the great A cannot deliver on time. Right?
Absolutely.
The abominable, the master of all, e-com is failing in the retailer, or pardon me, in the consumer's eyes on the fact that they cannot deliver speed. Delivered to your house tomorrow with Prime. Well, please accept our apologies for our delay. The demand is creating delay. It's not demand that's creating delay, right? It's the supply that creates the delay. The supply of the last mile of delivery, which we talked about last week, the painful exercise of getting it into the consumer's hands. We've had to slow that process down. And this article just clearly identifies that, the consumer is prepared for that, and they want to see a slowed process. We didn't touch on upcycling, the power, of not recycling, but upcycling, and taking, books is a great example. We resell books. We've been reselling books for decades. Barnes & Noble created a model on reselling, upselling, upcycling inventory.
Yeah.
And there's more and more of that coming out with apparel. The swap stores Swap Retail is doing a fabulous job of that.
Well, it's we've talked many times before, if you want to take on the big A based on speed and price, you're going to be in trouble down the road. And it's so cool to see these types of opportunities that retailers have to really, okay, this is how we're going to stand out, and in many ways not part of the other guy's model. So,
Right. I guess this. I mean, here you are. Let's use a sports analogy. Let's use a hockey analogy. You come up against a team that's bigger, faster, that appears to be on the surface more skilled than you are. You develop a system to break down what they're doing, not pair what they're doing.
Yep.
Your job isn't to replicate their speed. Your job is to break them down, slow them down. And the independent retailer is now slowing retail down. They're changing this model. It's not the fastest guy that always wins the race.
Yep. Okay. Well, that was great. No, I enjoyed that, and we'll have that link in this week's newsletter if you want to check out more of that. Our next story talks about Lightspeed. Just launched some new features to help drive the digital transformation for small, medium-sized businesses out there. It talks about enhancing the omni-channel shopping experience, enable greater multi-location efficiencies, and offer opportunities for improved productivity. Dan, this one well. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, Dax and his team at Lightspeed, have created a small device now that's going to enable tap and curbside pickup, but it's also collecting analytics. And let's not mistake this technical advancement as being about curbside pickup and contactless payment options.
Right.
This is about analytics. And the theme of what we need to talk about today is understanding my business at an analytical level, understanding how to break things down, understanding the analytics behind inventory, behind customer, behind sales performance. And this is another example of where Lightspeed in Canada is taking a step ahead of the other POS companies and coming up with devices that are going to help you better analyze your business and deliver a better experience for that customer that wants curbside or wants contactless payments.
Yeah.
And again, that's all this is. It's a tap device.
Yeah.
That's tracking the consumer payments.
Can you share a bit more about the analytics? Like what kind of things can
Well,
retailers
so
get
not
out of
from
this?
necessarily not from the curbside pickup, but analytics in any advancement in technology, if it gives us the ability to break our business down into small palatable chunks. Too many of us make the mistake of trying to manage our retail store, trying to manage that retail business rather than the 30 businesses that are within it. And every business unit that exists in a retail store can be broken down analytically with data, whether that is from the sales perspective, that selling system that's in your store, going through that customer, sales experience and breaking it down into chunks and analyzing, what my conversion is and how to improve things like conversion or average sale or units per transaction, to inventory analytics. How many days did I have it in stock? What's my stock to sales requirement? What's my margin? What's my cash margin at an at an item level or at a SKU level?
Right. We've talked before now, like with that omni-channel experience, you got to bring surety to the customer that, okay, I know where that we have that product and whether you're selling it digitally or in person. Or
we can't make the mistake of allowing something to sell online allow something to sell in our store and still show up online and then not be able to fulfill the order. Nothing pisses a customer off more than not getting what they went through the onerous task of checking out, which again, this article talks about that. Let's come up with a better way to check a faster way, an easier way, a more convenient way to check our customers out online. And using things like Apple and Google and Shop Pay makes it easier to check out. That process becomes more painless for the consumer. And I can tell you, more carts are abandoned at the checkout process than any other fashion.
Right.
Or for any other reason than the checkout is laborious, it's onerous, it's too much work.
Well, it's good that it's definitely becoming equalized, compared to the big A we just talked about before.
Yeah.
Their one-click ability, and that advantage is clearly going out the door for them. So,
and I think you're going to see other companies, other POS / e-com companies step up, and you're seeing that with Shopify now. You're going to see it, and those abilities inside Big and Woo and Magento and everybody else that's trying to, own or earn a piece of the e-com market right now. They're going to figure out a way, to one click and buy. And you're seeing it. A lot of programs now, when you log on, you're using a Facebook profile or a Google profile. If you're using Google or Chrome, it knows who you are. And with one click can register you and all of your personal information.
Yep. In our thumbprint we trust, or in our face profile.
Right.
Everyone gets so tired of filling out their name repeatedly. And
right. Yeah. Totally. I mean, our thumbprint is the only thing we have. We don't have face recognition. Yeah. I mean, not in this region. Face recognition is gone. We got to walk around with a goddamn mask on.
No, totally. Yeah. The T-shirt with the big face of picture of yourself on it. It's me.
This is who I am. Yeah.
Hey, folks. This podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Remember, they're here to listen and help you with the retail solutions to make your store more successful. From the latest point of sale software to e-commerce solutions, Retail Pro, Heartland Retail, Lightspeed, Shopify, and more, let them help you find your cutting-edge retail solution today. Be sure to visit retailbycrs.com. Okay, our next story comes to us, wwd.com, talking about, it's a big topic right now. A lot of retailers looking to restructure their rent this fall. The story talks about using historical and definitely more importantly, real-time data to help negotiate a better lease. What are your thoughts here, Dan?
Well, this is an age-old challenge that we have. We use historical data, for negotiating. We use historical data, and this is not on landlords. This is not on, this is in every example in retail. We use last year's data to tell us, what we need to do today. And it's BS. That's not what we need. We don't need historical data, especially when it comes to rent. These are my beliefs in negotiating your lease today. I need to know what your last 90 days performance is. I need to know what that performance in brick and mortar, without the e-com presence or performance is. And your rent needs to be negotiated to be a percentage of the revenue. And we know high profit stores maintain rent, as a percentage of revenue around 6%. That mid profit store, probably single digit profitability, is going to live in that 10% neighborhood. And our low profit, upside down, insolvent stores run 15 to 20% in rent expense. And if you use last year's sales performance, to negotiate with your landlord, you're probably making a mistake. If you've transitioned or pivoted, that word that we are using now, is another catchphrase, I've pivoted.
Yep.
If you've pivoted your business to be partially online and you're seeing 30% of your revenue come from your e-com effort, the landlord's not getting a piece of that action. He shouldn't be. And you need to be able to segregate that data. Again, we're talking about data. Segregate that data to say, hey, this is how much I'm paying for rent. I'm paying $10,000 a month and I'm driving $90,000 in monthly revenue. We've got a problem.
Gotcha.
And you've got to be negotiating with your landlord that rent must be a percentage of revenue. And I have this standing argument with retailers. Argument maybe isn't the best word, but the standing debate with retailers.
Yeah.
I'm going to end up paying more rent than than my net or my base square footage would be. And I say, so what? In those down months, in that J month, you're going to pay less rent.
Right.
Because your sales are down. We know that if we can convert expense to variable, it increases our contribution margin. The more variable, the higher our variable expenses, the faster we hit break even. Rent needs to become variable.
Top to that, Dan? Dude, that can go as...
I listen, if you can negotiate percentage rent and you're comfortable with that percentage and it's in that 6 to 10 window, you're amongst the high profit retail sector.
Right.
I don't care how much volume you do. Yeah. If it's that percentage of your brick and mortar sales, you're in a healthy place. And again, the faster we convert these fixed expenses to variable to be able to flow with my revenue line, the easier it is, the faster it is for me to achieve break even, that point at which we don't lose money.
So how do you see the location-wise, the A's, B's, and C's affecting that variable rate?
Well, I think the intelligent retailer is combining occupancy and advertising. They're looking at those two numbers together. If I've got a C location, I'm going to pay that really low rate for occupancy, or for my rent, but I'm going to double down on advertising to be able to drive traffic opportunities.
We talked
if
about
I'm in
that
a mall,
before. Yeah, totally.
And you've got to be thinking, you've got to be talking this way with your landlord. If you're in a strip center, if you're in a mall and they're demanding, double or triple digit rent per square foot, you've got to be talking to them about driving traffic. What are you doing to drive traffic into my location? Here's what my traffic was, pre-pandemic. Here's what my traffic is post-pandemic. It has changed by X. Why isn't my rent changing? Well, I don't have control over that. You're damn right you have control over that. You own this center. You own the ability. You own driving traffic. You're accountable to drive traffic to this center, which is why they're all going out looking for these big anchor tenants.
Yep. And we talked a couple of weeks back too about the mall being, the landlord being, now even more responsible for driving traffic, but not just physically, like digitally too, that they haven't played a really big role digitally for many in the past, and pushing them on that opportunity.
And so here's me advocating to take my digital sales out of the equation. And this, you've just created the exception for us. If your landlord is driving digital traffic,
Right.
then they do own a piece of that. But you can also, you can also track that. There are analytics. Here we go again, talking about data. There's analytics to tell me what my traffic sources are digitally. In one click, I know what my top referring site is. I know how people got to my site. And if that's connected to your landlord, then he's becoming the exception in today's rule.
Yeah. Right on. Oh, good stuff. I enjoyed that conversation, and won't go away. It's knowing your numbers, and we've talked before about sales are up, sales are down, but
Right.
if they don't have that sense of what's causing that, and if they're not tracking their traffic,
Right.
it makes for tough conversations down the road. You're kind of going with only what they have to say, and you don't have the data to support it.
And if you hit your sales goal and don't know why, you are destined for failure.
Yeah.
Destined. You might want to celebrate. You might want to have that, that 10-minute celebration that you hit your goal. But if you can't tell me the reason you hit your goal, you're destined for failure.
Yeah. Our next story, it's a blog post from retailpro.com, and pulls us in the heartstrings when it talks about the great toilet paper shortage of 2020. We may forget a few things down the road, but we won't forget the toilet paper shortage. But it talks about that knowledge of your inventory and that detailed visibility, giving your managers greater accuracy in tracking inventory, helping them really minimize those unprofitable overstocks, but more importantly, the opportunity cost of shortages and making sure they've got the inventory that they need. Tell us a bit more about this, Dan.
Well, I think, and kudos to Retail Pro hammering on inventory. This needs to be the topic of focus, especially now as 80% of the retail world is entering into a buying phase. You've got to know what to buy and when to land it. And understanding your inventory at a micro level is critical. Now, when I say micro level, I mean at a classification, and then at a vendor, and then at a SKU level or style level. You have to be able to break down that performance. And Retail Pro is speaking to that. I mean, they're alluding to the fact that there's some way to count missed sales, and there just really is no way to count a missed opportunity. I can't quantify missed sales. I don't know what I don't know. And by better analyzing inventory, I now have the opportunity or the ability to maximize opportunity. I know exactly what I need to have. And if I'm looking at this short-term trend in my inventory, I know where to steer dollars. In retail, I have to have it to sell it. And retailers today that are driving their inventory value with sales are again destined for some level of failure. You must drive sales with inventory, not the other way around. And by breaking down inventory, by being an astute inventory manager, I can now shift the direction of my sales at the classification level. This is a great segue, into the Wealthy Retailer 12 steps. You've got to be able to classify inventory. You need to take your business as a whole and break it down into small palatable chunks that measure demand, that measure her vote, yes or no, at the class level. I want to classify inventory on this, a similar selling curve. T-shirts sell on a similar curve. All T-shirts belong in a classification. And by managing it at the class level versus the vendor level, it eliminates duplication in my store. I know that my demand is $10,000 for T-shirts. Now that's the science, understanding what I need in T-shirts. The art is what T-shirts to buy, and using marrying your point of sale, your Retail Pro platform, and your merchandising and your buying strategy together allows art and science to blend and drive performance in your business. Understanding what inventory to land and when, having the right inventory in the right class at the right time drives sales. No one ever walks in your store and says, "Show me something from last year." It doesn't happen. There are exceptions, but as a rule, especially in fashion, I don't want to see last year. And in most sports stores, I don't want to see last year.
Right, right.
There's a rare exception where I want to buy last year's golf driver, last year's hockey stick, but it's a rarity.
Yeah.
I want the latest technology.
I love the observation of art and science, and in your world, Dan, you're working with retailers all across the country all day long. I'm sure you see many of them where their strength is more on the science, the math side, and then there's some that their strength is the art, and
Right.
then some that manage to have one foot in each canoe. What
Right.
do you see often? Like where do you see most of the strengths from independent retailers?
Independent retail, the strength is in the art. For sure. On this teeter-totter, we fall to the bottom with the art. Science is waving around up in the air, and that's why they need a scientist in their business. We've often referred to ourselves as retail scientists. We break down inventory to a micro level to better predict where business is going. And we're using technology. Management One has some of the most sophisticated, or has the most sophisticated, merchandise planning tool available to the independent retailer today. It's what the Nikes of the world have been doing forever. It's why they've dominated. They have the ability to break down their business into micro levels. Well, our friends, our partners at Management One are bringing that to the independent, have for 30 years. This is not something new.
Right.
For more than 30 years, they've brought this intelligence to the independent retailer to give them a fighting chance. Well, it's more important today than it's ever been. And, retailers, I'll tell you this has been my experience. Retailers that are really good at the science really suck at buying. They don't get it. They don't have that ability for trend. They're black and white. They don't live in the gray. Right? And my job is to live in the black and white. My job is to be super objective. Your job as a retailer is to be very artful, very creative, to overbuy. Your job is to overbuy. Your job is to be overzealous. And my job is to rein you in with science and data. And when we marry that art and science, it becomes this beautiful picture of profitability. And let's not forget that this is all about cash profit. Right? The black and white scientist is trying to buy it for $1 and sell it for 10. It doesn't work. You need art. Yeah. You've got to recognize that, no, I'm going to spend a little bit more to follow, or in fact, to lead this trend with my early adoption consumer. And that's all about, art and risk, and marrying art and science, allows us to mitigate risk.
That's great. No, I love that, Dan. Again, we'll have that story link in this week's newsletter. We're also going to have a few other stories that didn't quite make the cut for talking about, but still worth checking out. So Shopify, they had their Q2 results come out, and as you could guess, they were pretty massive. They're experiencing some huge growth. A little bit about what needs to happen to keep sustaining that growth. There's a neat story from can't even say this properly, greenentrepreneur.com, cannabis-based, talking about education opportunities for students, or for retailers. Well, make them your students, and I think you can make them a customer for life. A story about these shared workspaces, incubators. We're seeing them develop at malls now, picking up space. So take a peek at that story, and a few more things. Lots of great stuff to check out in this week's newsletter, folks. Be sure to head to retailbycrs.com. If you haven't done so, sign up for the newsletter. And it was a good one, Dan. What do you think?
And I'll tell you, this is great. This fits right into my, my love for blah, blah, blah. I can,
blah, blah, blah.
This just falls out. Yeah. But I'll tell you, there was 2 articles that I really did want and not want. I was torn. The Shopify one, I was torn. I don't want to give them any praise right now. Yes, they've got massive growth. And if you're a shareholder or a stockholder, you love what's going on. If you're the consumer, or the retailer, you're really pissed off with these guys. They've got to get their shit together. They're not supporting the customer, the retailer, their customer, the way they need to. They're very difficult to get a hold of. And the other thing I really wanted to talk about, and I've been sort of shying away from the green talk, My favorite cannabis store, the reason I love, Rocky Mountain Roots here in St. Albert, is because every time I walk in, I learn something. This is so much about them connecting with their customer. These guys, these guys have done such a fabulous job of curating product from a limited supply in Alberta. They've got a limited selection. But what they have curated, they know, and their sales success comes from their product knowledge, and that product knowledge has passed on to me, the consumer, as education. So, I mean,
doesn't matter what you sell. Like, look for that opportunity in your business.
Oh man,
create.
Man, if our retailers were that passionate about T-shirts, if our retailers were as passionate about T-shirts as Matt is about cannabis, there's no stopping us. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, great topics. And if you want to hear more, high opinionated conversation about the topics from today or the topics, that we didn't talk about, hit thewealthyretailer.com or retailbycrs.com. Absolutely subscribe to our newsletter and join or follow on your favorite podcast platform, thewealthyretailer.com. Subscribe, comment, hit us up. And we've got lots more that we can talk about in this vein.
Yeah, every week there's never a shortage of headlines.
Never.
It's always dynamic, and just love the conversation. Folks, thanks for joining us this week on the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. Is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. At their core, they believe in having real and relevant relationships, offering solution-based sales and services, maintaining a client-centered bottom line focus, and providing credible and complete care. As Dan said, he wants you to be the artist, and they're the mad scientists that will reel you in with black and white data and help you because they exist to make you the retailer better. Have a great
healthier.
day, everyone.
Yeah. Good on you. Keep fighting the good fight.
Awesome.